Have you ever said yes when every part of you wanted to say no? And have you noticed how the yes always feels smaller in the moment than the years it costs you afterward? This story is about a man who never learned to refuse anyone, and what he found on the other side of finally learning how. Once upon a time, in a village nestled between two rivers, there lived a young man named Elias. He had a gentle face and quick hands. And from the time he was a boy, he had one habit that everyone noticed. He never said no. If a neighbor asked him to fix a fence, Elias dropped whatever he was doing and fixed it. If a friend needed help moving stones for a new wall, Elias arrived before sunrise. If someone needed a favor, however small or however large, Elias agreed before they had even finished asking. People loved this about him. They called him kind. They called him dependable. They said the village was lucky to have a man like Elias. And every time someone praised him this way, something warm rose in his chest. And he told himself this was who he was meant to be. But Elias had his own small farm, and it needed his hands too. His fences needed mending. His fields needed tending. Yet by the time he finished helping everyone else, his own work waited in the dark, and he was too tired to do it. Weeks passed this way, then months, then years. His neighbor Holland often asked him to help repair his roof every season without fail. Elias always said yes. His friend Oren borrowed tools and money and time, and never once asked how Elias was doing in return. Elias always said yes. Even his own brother, who lived 2 houses down, would send his children to Elias whenever he wanted an afternoon of peace. And Elias always said yes. Even when his own body ached for rest, Elias told himself this was simply his nature. He was a helper. Helpers did not complain. Helpers did not refuse. One autumn evening, after a long day spent repairing someone else's cartwheel instead of harvesting his own field, Elias sat alone by his fire, exhausted in a way that sleep could not fix. He looked around his small house and realized his own roof had a leak he had ignored for 2 years. His own fence had fallen in 3 places. His own field, the one that fed him, had gone half wild with weeds because he never had the time. He sat with this realization for a long while until he heard a knock at his door. It was an old woman from the far edge of the village, someone he had spoken to only a few times before. She had heard he was the most helpful man in the village, and she had a small favor to ask. Elias opened his mouth to say yes, the way he always did, but this time something stopped him. He looked at his hands, rough and tired, and at the small pile of unfinished work waiting behind him. For the first time in his life, he said, "I am sorry. I cannot help tonight. I have my own work waiting." The old woman blinked, surprised, then nodded slowly and left without complaint. Elias sat back down, his heart pounding as if he had done something dangerous. He waited for guilt to arrive, the way it always did whenever he even considered refusing someone. But instead, something else arrived, a strange, unfamiliar quiet. The next morning, Elias began repairing his own roof for the first time in 2 years. It was slow work, and his hands remembered old habits of helping others faster than himself, but he continued. By midday, Hallen arrived asking for help with his fence again. Elias felt the old pull to agree instantly, but he paused and said, "Not today. I am repairing my own roof." Hallen looked stunned, then annoyed, then walked away without another word. Elias felt his chest tighten with worry. Had he ruined a friendship? Had he disappointed someone who depended on him? But the next day, Hallen returned, this time with an apology. "I did not realize how much I relied on you without ever asking how you were doing," he said. "I am sorry." Elias was surprised. He had expected anger, not reflection. Word spread slowly through the village that Elias had started saying no. Some people were annoyed, expecting him to remain endlessly available. Oren stopped asking to borrow tools quite so often. And when he did, he began asking Elias how his own farm was doing first, something he had never done before. Elias's brother, surprised at first, began actually asking if it was a good time before sending his children over, instead of assuming it always was. Elias noticed something important during this time. The people who valued him only for his constant yes slowly drifted to find help elsewhere, while the people who genuinely cared about him adjusted, respected his boundaries, and in many cases, became more thoughtful and more present in return. His refusals did not destroy his relationships. They revealed which ones had depth and which had only ever been convenience. Meanwhile, his own farm began to heal. The fence was repaired. The field grew full and green again. His roof no longer leaked. And more than that, something inside him grew steadier. He no longer felt the anxious rush of obligation every time someone approached him with a request. He felt, for the first time, like a man standing on his own ground. Months later, the old woman who had once been turned away returned to his door. This time, Elias had finished his own work and he had time to spare. He helped her gladly, not out of guilt or fear of disappointing her, but because he genuinely wanted to. The help felt different now, lighter, real. She thanked him, and as she turned to leave, she said something he never forgot. "The first time I came, you told me no. I respected you more in that moment than I ever did before, because I finally believed you meant yes when you said it." Elias stood in his doorway for a long while after she left, turning her words over in his mind. He understood now that every yes he had given without thought had actually meant less, not more, because it cost him nothing to give and revealed nothing about what he truly wanted. It was only once he learned to say no that his yes became worth something at all. Now think about your own life. How many times have you said yes when your whole body wanted to say no? How many favors, obligations, and requests have you accepted simply because refusing felt impossible? Every yes you give without thought is a small debt taken from your own life. A little less time, a little less energy, a little less of yourself. Saying no does not make you unkind. It does not make you selfish. It makes your yes mean something again. The people who truly value you will not disappear when you set a boundary. They will adjust, and often they will respect you more for it. The next time someone asks something of you and your gut tightens with hesitation, pause before you answer. Ask yourself honestly whether you want to give this, or whether you are only afraid of what happens if you don't. Your time and your energy are not endless. They are the only currency you truly have. And every yes you give away without thought is a piece of your own life spent on someone else's behalf. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories that change the way we see ourselves. Thank you for listening.